I'm Stephanie Wilson, and you're listening to Freedom Over Fascism.
What's different about Unified is that the product from the ground up and even the business as a whole is designed with the activist or organizer in mind. So we hope that video content might go viral on TikTok, organizing actions and content will go viral on Unified.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. If you're anything like me, the last week or month or years have been completely brutal. So, because I need one, I want to encourage you to take a break if you need it. I've been taking some social media breaks as well. That meant I missed the Aurora Borealis on Friday, but I guess you can't win them all. Today's episode features my conversation with Shion Deysarkar, an entrepreneur who, like many of us, started his activism journey in November of 2016. He worked with Jeremy Smith in the 2020 cycle to create a relational organizing platform and has now created a social media platform specifically for pro-democracy activists. That's us, folks. The point is to make a community of activists where we can learn from each other, contact each other, and connect with fellow travelers. In a lot of ways, that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. I'm going to put my invite code in the show notes. That's the best way to sign up, according to Shion. I've been talking to several activists from Texas, and everyone I talk to takes care to assure me that everything really is bigger in Texas. So I hope to have some good interviews for you soon with Texas-based organizers. Also, I just chatted with my cousin who lives in Tennessee. She worries about 4 more years of Trump. I reminded her, as I'm reminding you now, as I've reminded you a million times before, that if Trump wins, he will never leave office. It's not another 4 years. It's an era of autocracy from his first day in office. So please remind your friends and family that the presidential isn't a normal election where 4 years of policy is on the line. It could very well be the last presidential election. And Trump and company will try to cheat and steal the election. So keep talking to your networks. I really liked talking to Shion. He's trying to create a community that sort of exists in real life and around the internet, but doesn't have a landing place for everyone to come together. So we'll get to that conversation after hearing about Civitech, the organization Jeremy Smith founded for better data tools for activists and candidates. And, like always, I'd like to invite your support on the Substack at freedomoverfascism.us, and I hope you'll leave a review wherever you listen. Civitech is dedicated to creating tools for progressives to build a fairer democracy. Its brand new campaign management platform, called Running Mate, is built for democratic campaigns of all sizes. Running Mate allows you to see all the relevant voter data in your district with an interactive map and dashboard. Detailed maps in the tool allow you to view the voter file alongside likely unregistered voters and filter your data by party registration, vote history, race, sex, age, and more. Built with campaigns' tight budgets and limited resources in mind, Running Mate subscriptions start at just $75 a month, making it affordable and accessible for campaigns of any size. Use Running Mate to track your campaign goals, visualize your district's registered and unregistered voter data, and plan your path to victory. Learn more at civitech.io. Shion Deysarkar, welcome to Freedom Over Fascism.
Hey there, thanks for having me.
I wanted to talk to you because you are co-founder of Unified, a new social media community platform, and have founded a bunch of other businesses in the past. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and the businesses you founded and why you decided to start a new social media platform?
My background is in tech and data. I graduated from Carnegie Mellon with a degree in computer science. Eventually, started a company called Data Affinity, which is basically a data provider. Around the 2016 election, things took a big turn for me.
Wow.
Yeah, surprise. So the election happened, and the story is that my birthday is actually on November 6th. And every 4 years, my partner, I kind of did this combination birthday, election party, whole deal. The last two times we did that, it was really fun. We thought it'd be really fun again in 2016. My birthday cake even said, "Happy birthday, Shion, and congratulations as a present."
Oh,
With
no.
blue icing. And so, yeah, that night was not unfolding as I thought it would. And I was just like dead silent on the couch watching TV, ignoring all my friends. I just got more and more stunned and shocked and all the feelings. Woke up the next morning and literally just collapsed on the bathroom floor crying. It was really it was a really traumatic experience for me. It just really shattered my understanding of what it meant to be American. My way of processing grief is to just do something, anything. So I started researching political groups in Austin and eventually found a group here. Their premise, at least at the time, was that Texas is not a red state, it's a non voting state. And so their whole thing was about registering and turning out voters with the theory that they would lean Democrat. The meetups were very eye opening in terms of how the political process works at the door knocking level, if you will.
Hmm.
During that, I not only got more exposed to political campaigns in the Austin area, I got more connected to the folks at the state party who are based here in Austin. I also became more familiar with some of the deficiencies, specifically on the technology side of how campaigns operate and the data side. Being someone who had started and was running a company that sold data, it was pretty shocking to me that the quality of the data that campaigns receive, because my customers were depending on me for highly accurate lists of information that had to be 90+% accurate, or it was complete garbage to them. As I also started to learn more about how organizing works, what became apparent to me was this dichotomy between how it should work and how it actually works. And what I mean by that is should work is that politicking should be like more of a community experience. You have a need that you're trying to fulfill within your community. You're the one that stepped up to do it, and you rally your community to support your efforts to accomplish that goal. How it really works is it's a very transactional list process where a campaign is basically buying a list of voters and of donors or trading for that list and going down that one by one. That was like a further disillusionment because even the folks that I wanted to help were going about it in a way that seemed antithetical to how it should be done.
And also
So
really inefficient.
I agree with you, but also we're seeing here in Texas where it is true, everything's bigger here. Just to reach one congressional district is like the same as running a state operation in a different state. So I can understand the challenges that campaigns have when they're trying to reach millions and millions of voters. And this is the best option they have. I don't blame them for that. But if you understand how real social change happens, it's not through a less process. As you get that community and there's actually a cultural shift that you get there. And that wasn't happening in most cases. I wanted to tackle that problem. And what happened was I got involved with a congressional race here. This guy named Joseph Cobbs here. Joseph is a pretty well-known entrepreneur here in Austin. He has a military background, was running as a Democrat in a new seat that didn't have any incumbent anymore. He's a well-connected person. He was frustrated that he couldn't leverage his network more effectively. And the folks that were spraying couldn't do that either. Myself and Jerry Smith, who you've also talked to, we didn't know at the time. We came with this idea that is now called relational organizing. What if we just asked everyone to give us their contacts and we could help them figure out who the best people to reach out to was? Oh, that's now called relational organizing. So we built like a super hacky version of that for Copser's campaign. People really loved it. And I liked it because it was getting more to this point of this is the community working, not just a list, right? So we had some success with that. We had 100,000 voter targets that went through that, which is pretty nice. And we then ended up building a tool called Blue Squad based on that process. So Blue Squad was basically like a digital relational tool, much like some of the others you see out there today. And we offered that tool through the 2020 cycle, so about 1 to 2 years. I think we ended up having about 40 or so different campaigns or advocacy groups use it. So we had some decent success, but that experience made me feel that relational organizing was still toward the end of the spectrum that's more list and transactional in nature. Yes, you are leveraging a network, but just the list comes from a different place now. It's not really too many. And when you look at how folks use tools like Reach, for example, they're not really engaging the community. They're just like, here's my list. I'm going to help the campaign clean up this list, and then the campaign's going to use that data. That's still a pretty transactional thing in its nature. And then I found that there is a ceiling on how far relational organizing could go. And if you look at the data, you maybe get a 3% lift on voter turnout, which is good, like current standards for sure. But if we go back to the original motivation of this was Trump got elected and fascism was on the rise, 3% voter turnout is not good enough to fight that. And so I went back to the drawing board, went back to that research I had done on how organizing really works, and was like, we need something that really models community behavior. As it turned out, for better or worse, social media platforms are very good at creating communities. They had been traditionally used for entertainment style communities. But I was thinking, well, if they have some of the mechanics that work in this kind of market, could they be applied to organizing to help achieve that scale that is the reason why campaigns go to like these less transactional processes. They need to achieve scale. It's hard to do that in a community sense, but there's some things here within social media products that are solving that in certain ways. So can we learn some of those things, tweak them somehow, and create a different version of them that's specifically geared for activists? We've run into this serious issue in our country. We need to solve it. The solution must lie in community engagement. And how do we scale community engagement? It needs a different model of how campaigns work today.
That's really interesting. And as I talk to more and more people, that election night in 2016 has been the thing that helped a lot of them start to create what they were best at creating. So Jonathan Zucker said he was one of the Act Blue founders. And he said, I know how to move money around. So I'm going to start something that helps candidates. And other people say, well, I know how to do this. So I'm going to start that. So the last couple of years, the social media landscape has broken up into little tiny pieces and it's all over the place. And you have ones that are succeeding, ones that aren't. And none of them specifically targeted activists, but a lot of them are getting a lot of activists, particularly the ones that started with the assumption that Twitter was terrible and Meta was terrible and we need something else. What do you do? And maybe it's a difference in the way you think about things or a difference in your business model, but what does Unify do that nobody else does or can do it better, do you believe, to bring people together into community and action?
You pointed out there's been a lot of changes in the social media landscape, which we didn't anticipate when I started this. Twitter/X is an alt-right platform now. Meta has explicitly said that they're going to derank political content, and then we'll see what happens with TikTok for the next couple of years or so. Then there have been other new platforms. Though those newer platforms, I think, are very much trying to compete on Twitter's maybe older model now. And so they're trying to position themselves as like pure media consumption. What's different about Unified is that the product from the ground up and even the business as a whole is designed with the activist or organizer in mind. So in terms of the product itself, if you use Unified, you'll notice all sorts of different things in it that are specifically geared around optimism. At the very start, when you create an account and you sign up, like other social media platforms, you'll be asked to pick different interests, but you'll see that the interests that you pick in Unified are all political or activism related, right? Instead of I'm into woodworking, it will say, are you into criminal justice or something? So it immediately identifies what you're interested in, where you are, and tries to connect you with other activists that are in that same location and the same topic of interest. From the very get-go, we're all about connecting with other activists, underlying activists that are doing the work that you're most engaged in. I think one of the biggest differences is that we are introducing this new type of content that we call an action, where you can actually create an action like voter registration drive or a petition to elected officials, and eventually other things we'll introduce as well. You can create a social media version of that thing within Unified and share it across the platform. So just like you would create and share a picture or photo on Instagram or TikTok, you can create an action on Unified and share that as content. So that means that other people can see it. You can create it within seconds versus the maybe days long process it would take otherwise. You can share it with everyone. It gets distributed right away to the network. So we hit on the distribution for you. And then people can take that action, reshare it themselves, things like that. So we hope that video content might go viral on a TikTok. Organizing actions and content will go viral on Unified, which I think will be powerful in the future. And there's other things too, really interesting things like organizational accounts, events, things like that. And then even eventually fundraising. So going back to the business model, how it's been designed from the ground up. Other social media platforms depend primarily on advertising to sustain themselves. We are going to base our business on the fundraising that organizers engage in, and like an ActBlue or other platforms, payment processors. We will take a small commission of that. What's exciting about it is that the business will depend entirely on how successful we can make organizers. And that has implications about how we operate as an entity, which means that our incentives align with the organizers' incentives versus other platforms where it's been shown demonstrably that those incentives are completely misaligned.
So, what we're trying to do with this podcast is create a community where people can reach out to people they know and share good information with them. But my audience also is mostly activists and not the general public. So I was really interested in this idea of forming community because there are other projects that are kind of trying to do the same thing and then either got really expensive because they got bought, like Mobilize, or for a while the DNC was using Greenfly to try to promote content and help people share it out. There have been a couple of other things I've been aware of. So, what's your theory on how to get organizers to use Unified when they're also trying to use every tool they can find? Because then it becomes overwhelming to use every social media tool, every organizing tool. How do you think that this community will grow, and how do you think about asking activists to use it?
That's a good question. So the thing we're most focused on right now is making it easier for activists to discover and connect with one another. And so in terms of the product, what we're most focused on right now is you have your public social media feed where you can see what other activists are posting and decide if you want to connect with them or not. We provide the search and discovery features in the Explore tab to help you find folks in your area or other interests that you're engaged in. And then we provide communication tools to enable that connection. There's DMs and group chat in the app right now. Within the next couple months, though, I hope we'll have organizational communication tools as well. So you will create actual organizational accounts and have like a Slack or Discord like experience in terms of chat for that as well. So structured channels and things. Initially, it's focusing on that ability for activists to discover and connect to one another and then amplify each other's efforts. If we're successful in that and we can grow the community along those lines, then we can start to introduce other tools that make sense to embed in that sort of social experience of that social fabric. So events are definitely something on our roadmap. Events are an obvious way that not only activists, but their supporters connect with one another. So I think it makes sense for us to include an event feature within Unified. And you see it in other platforms like Facebook and stuff like that as well. So we'll do that. Once we start introducing these other tools, then we also start taking away some of the fractured burden that activists have, where now you've got You have public social feed to connect with everyone across the ecosystem. You've got your private communication channels, chat and organizational chat. You start having your events you can run through there. And then, like I said, we'll later introduce fundraising and that brings another tool into the suite as well. So that is a lot of things. Our strategy to achieve that is to first focus on that discovery connection, make that really strong, and then introduce these other things that make sense. And that we'll start to chip away at that.
So, how's it going?
It's going well. We're still super early right now. I think at the moment there's about 500 activists on the platform. So obviously that's super tiny. But we also have about 600 or so different organizations that have expressed some degree of interest in the platform, waiting for those organizational features. There's some interest in different groups, especially here in Texas where we're based, that could bring 20 to 100,000 users before the end of the year. We feel that there's a ton of interest and it's just about delivering the stuff that folks are looking for. So we're doing everything we can, moving as quickly as we can to make that happen.
It would be amazing to have not 20 places you have to look and put stuff, but, one centralized place where you can learn from other people and get more movement on what your project or candidate or group is doing. Do you feel like Texas is a particularly good place to start this because of everything's bigger in Texas and can get more momentum, or does it matter geography?
I don't think it necessarily matters where the network kind of starts and builds up. I obviously have personal vested interest in helping groups in Texas. It is home. I do think that some of the ways that a network, the community grows, I think it's helpful for us to be in Texas or serendipitous perhaps, because we have an existing network here. And for a tool like Unified to get off the ground, you need a trusted network or social graph to exist already. So we can leverage our network here. In Texas being a big state, it allows us to test scale with a community that kind of already knows us. At the same time, we already have little pockets of interest across the country. So it was actually quite fun a couple weeks ago to see the Minnesota State House organizers really get on the platform and love it. So they just started posting like, I organized because of my pet, and like they're just posting dog pictures and stuff like that. So that was cool to see. So there's little pockets like that forming across the country as well. And actually, when we look at the map of where users are now, there's definitely different pockets like that. And those organizations I spoke about, they are pretty wide mixed both geographically and issues based. So I think we'll definitely see an early strong cluster in Texas because it's just where we are. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's flare ups in rapid adoption in other parts that we don't anticipate yet.
Have you had interest by bigger companies in what you're doing, or are you just heads down getting the product together and getting it out there?
Early on, I had spoken to companies like Mobilize and ActBlue about like possible integration. There's a lot of pieces that we want to incorporate and obviously we have to have third party support with that. So this stuff may have changed since then, but the integration options are lacking. And so I didn't really see a viable path or it makes sense to plan around that. Some things have changed, especially on the Mobilize side recently, but I'm going to have to revisit it. There are definitely opportunities for third parties to be on Unified like that. In particular, the actions I spoke about, I would love those to be like almost like a app ecosystem that any other vendor could use and distribute technology or tooling within Unified. The key thing that we want to provide is that social graph, that social connection throughout the ecosystem. And if folks have interesting ideas for how to leverage that, we want to support that.
So, what does your horizon roadmap timing look like? You're on mobile and I'm in the community, but what are you looking like for? Like, will it be available on the web? And what's your timeline, you think, for greater adoption?
Yeah. So we're actually going to be releasing a web version, I think, in the next 8 to 12 weeks. It's actually in development right now. During that time, we're also going to be releasing, like I mentioned, organizational accounts. So you'll be able to create like a group for your county party or a neighborhood association, anything really, and then have structured communication or private communication with your supporters there. So those are two big things that are coming very soon. I think with that, there's different groups that we've been talking to for a while that are waiting for those features. And I think there'll be like an inflection point that happens when those come out. There are some specific programs that those groups are looking at, between the early summer and the election. And so we're hoping that Unify could be their digital community for those programs.
As an activist and somebody trying to leverage community to help people share ideas across the country, I'm invested in something like this working well because the information is just so scattered right now. And we know that people are organizing in different parts of the country, organizing similar types of populations to do the same kinds of things, and they've never heard of each other. And they're not cooperating because, things are popping up organically and in place to place. But that's great, but that's a lot of reinvention of the wheel. Whereas if we get people to know each other, then there
I
could be
think
more collaboration.
I feel like there's a lot of potential benefits relative that are sometimes hard to communicate. So you've kind of touched on one there where, the left is like famous for being not super coordinated.
Really?
Right. A big reason for that is because it's a very heterogeneous group, right? Unlike the
Hmm.
right, which is more homogeneous, right? So they can have structural advantages that the left is. A social media platform can behind the scenes assist that. Like it's not explicitly saying, here's you and you talk, right? It kind of puts that information in front of you and then you make the decision yourself to make that connection, right? So there have been both offline and online efforts in the past to figure out this kind of, you know, coordination collaboration piece on the left. And often people take this very top down approach. It's a very centralized approach. But that's like fundamentally against the nature of the left, I think, which can be a good thing. And so like that's why I kind of feel like a social platform design for like can have these hidden benefits where it's providing that recommendation to you. It's not controlling you to do that. It's like, here is it. You take advantage of
Hmm.
it and they can decide. I think that's more to the nature of how the left operates than what these centralized top-down approaches are trying to do.
I think that that's true, and I think there are, a bunch of people who finally realized how many people there are doing how many different things on the grassroots level that they really hadn't had any clue about. Like Simon Rosenberg, who I talked to last year, who's now everywhere, realized that there were a ton of groups out there holding their own Zooms and
Yeah.
creating their own little projects, and he decided, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go talk to all of them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna help anybody who asks me." And and I feel like that's where the potential lies is a lot of us are doing the work. We're just not connected with each other, or we're just not connected with the people who can amplify what we're doing enough to get it known. And if there's a good way to do it, that would just make everything better. There's a group that's trying to provide people with basically open source commercials that can be customized for where you are and for your organization. And if more people knew about what they were doing, by the way, they're called Amplify. It's with Anat Shinker Osorio and her gang. For the listeners out there, finding places where people can find each other is just so important, I think, in this organizing world.
We had a conversation with the district director for our congressional rep here. It's weird that he didn't really know who the right folks to talk to were in this new district, who the local leaders were. The district was like, it would be great if I could just instantly see who all those people are. And there's no way for me to do
Mhm.
that right now. I was like, yes, exactly. So the fact that a congressional rep is having a problem, it's a problem for everyone else.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it's done super low tech, which is you call somebody who you think is connected and say, "Who do I need to talk to?" And then you
Yeah,
reach out individually. And if
that analog offline thing that is certainly happening right now. Like going back to what I said earlier, like finding a way to make that process more efficient and operate at scale. If that can be solved, if we hope we're doing, that will make organizing so much more.
So, are you looking at this like a long-term power building project over years? The episode that our listeners will have already heard by the time this comes out is with a funder investing in a lot of different projects with the sole goal of Biden winning the presidential this November. So they're investing in some really longer term projects, but they're investing in such a way that they want maximum impact quickly. Is your trajectory a little bit more, this might take longer, but be a stronger backbone?
If I sounds like what that person is doing, that we might have kind of the same mental model where there is a long-term place here where if this does get to a certain scale, like there's things we're trying to design now to that'll kind of blossom when that happens. At the same time, we recognize that for our user base and customer base, our market as a whole, to feel like this has legs, we have to move quickly, right?
Mhm.
That's just human nature. So we're also engaged in different sort of tactical things to get big wins in the near future. Like some of the groups I mentioned, right? That bring in a lot of users or members. That's part of that, right? And so we
Yeah,
actively build relationships with those folks to then capitalize on them when the moment is right. Yeah, set ourselves up for that.
that sounds really great. So, what do you want our activist listeners to know about the platform, how to sign up, where they should look? What do they need to know to get started?
Well, I think the best way for them to get started would be for Stephanie here to share her invite link and leave in the show notes when the timing is right. So basically, the way folks join Unify is that they can either go to our website at joinunify.us and sign up for the wait list, and we'll let them get the room. But the really better way is for an existing user to send them an invite. So every user can go into their settings in the invite friends section, and there's an invite code they can share. And that code, you have as many as you want. You can share that. Folks can use it to sign up. And so that's the best way folks can get involved and then just be along for the ride as we build up this community. One thing I'll just add to that, one reason we're using the invite system is not just like a kind of gatekeeping thing. We actually want to do that forever because it's how real world communities work. You don't just show up to a thing and, hey, I'm part of the community now. It's more like someone brings you along and like vouches for you. Right? And so we can continue to grow our network that way. It will mean that everyone will have been invited by someone else at some point. Also can make it so that the community is healthier, right? Because now we can do stuff like if someone starts being abusive or something like that, we can tell the person who invited them, hey, this person you invited, maybe talk to them, right? Are they doing okay? Which is how real world communities operate, right? And so community moderation is a big challenge in these other platforms. We hope by using this invite system, we can make it a healthier and safer space, which is particularly important for activist organizers.
And particularly now, there are cracks in the left that are kind of bubbling up. And if we can keep a space open for listening and working together as opposed to the opposite, it would be fantastic so that everyone who wants to achieve freedom and not have fascism to feel welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this, especially since this week I saw that Post is shutting down. Anything else you would like our audience to know before I let you go?
I think we covered a lot, and I definitely enjoyed the conversation. I hope everyone who listened appreciates the need, like you said, to have a space where we could kind of connect and scale across the entire ecosystem. I definitely think that's been sorely missing since traditional social media did not solve it, especially for activists. It's working against us. So I'm hoping Unify can do that, please, and hopefully folks can join it.
Well, I will certainly put my link in the show notes, and I'll put my link in when I start talking about my conversation with you on social media. I want to thank you for starting this because it's definitely needed.
Hey, I'm Alok, the host of Build the Change, a brand new podcast from MacBlue about the people at the center of progress. Join us on a journey across the country as we uncover stories about the everyday folks working together to build something bigger than themselves, real change. You'll hear from students in Appalachia advocating for LGBTQ-friendly books in their communities, healthcare workers providing telehealth abortions across the country, immigrant farm workers fighting for their safety in the blazing sun, and candidates in states with razor-thin margins. Listen to Build the Change now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Over Fascism. And thank you to our editor, Benji Wilson. Please join our Patreon at patreon.com/freedomoverfascism. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please drop us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. We thank you for choosing freedom over fascism.